Chapter 11. The lineup for the game was basically the same one from last night, except that Tavi and I flipped spots in the order, as Tavi hit Curtin pretty well last year. I switch hit, so it really didn't matter to me third or fifth, should still have plenty of men to drive in. At this level, you must always play the percentages, and this was a good one. The game from the outset was going to be a tough one. Jones grounded a second after fouling off 9 pitches. It was a great at-bat. Mike Adams struck out on 4. Tavi stung the third pitch from Curtin, but the Pirates' right fielder Morales made a leaping catch at the wall to bring back a home run, just inside the fair pole. What a catch. 3 up and 3 down for the Monarchs. Como and Bolton worked a flawless for the first 3 innings, setting up hitters and changing speeds. Mike had 6 Ks and no one hit the ball out of the infield. Ross Jones led up the 4th with a soft liner to center. The Pirates pitcher Curtin became too preoccupied with Jones and threw to first base 10 times. He was wasting his pitch count for the night for sure. The crowd became more vocal with each throw to first. Curtin finally delivers a pitch to the plate. Jones breaks for second and barely makes it off with a perfect throw from the catcher. An argument from the Pirate manager begins that cannot be won. He is all over the second base umpire, who just happens to be a woman. She listens to all he has to say with her arms folded across her chest. If the Pirate manager could read body language, he would know he was wasting his time. I walked down to the end of the bench where Bolton was sitting with the towel around his neck. He left his shin guards on, but his chest protector off to keep cool. He's just setting her up for some other close calls that may happen later in the game, Bolton stated. He knows he can't win, but he's letting her know he's watching and wants his share of the close calls. That's a pretty shrewd move on his part. I hadn't thought about that much, but it made perfect sense. The game within a game. This is what they talked about. The little things that can make all the difference. He was just motivating his team. The Pirate manager was moving back to the dugout slowly, but would be around after a few steps and make some other comments. A few more steps and some other comments he would make. Mike Adams stepped back into the batter's box. Jones had a good leadoff second as well. Ball 2, yelled the umpire. Mike stepped out and looked for a new sign from Red. He goes through a whole sequences of tugs and pulls and swipes across his head and chest, claps his hands a few times, and then turns his back to the plate to get set deep in the coach's box. That was all for show, because Mario at first base was really giving the signs. On Curtin's next pitch, Jones fakes a break for third while Adams drops down a perfect bunt down the third base line, which neither the catcher or the third baseman can get to. Jones held on a second, and now we had the beginning of a rally with the crowd as the organist really getting into it. This crowd had been a little bit more subdued from the one last night, but now we had 2 on and nobody out. Tavi stepped into the batter's box, leveled his bat across the plate 4 or 5 times, and then he got set. Curtin now was in a little bit of a jam, and Tavi at the plate, with Bond and myself on deck, trouble was brewing for sure. It was up to John to make the pitcher work and swing at only a great pitch. Tavi took the first pitch a curveball for a strike. A couple of players yelled out of the dugout, "Come on, Tavi, rip it out of here. Take him downtown, Mr. T." The second pitch was a curveball, so far outside their catcher had to dive way out to his left just to save it. Time was called and the catcher wanted to talk to Curtin. The crowd began to clap with the tension building rapidly. The catcher comes back and Curtin gets set again as John'll settles back into the box. Curtin finds a sign he likes and goes into his stretch. He checks Jones the second, who has a great lead. Curtin breaks his stretch and comes to the plate with a fastball belt high on the outside of the plate. Tavy waits, steps into it, fully extending his arms with a strong push to left center field. With a strong snap of his wrist, John's chin is buried into his left shoulder as the ball rockets off his bat into left center. The left fielder attempts a diving catch, but the ball tips off the end of his glove and rolls all the way to the wall. Both Jones and Adams went halfway to make sure the catch wasn't made, but then dashed home as Tavy went diving headfirst into third base with his first triple ever. The crowd went crazy as the Monarchs now led 2-0. "Johnny, Johnny, Johnny," chants the crowd. As Reggie stepped to the plate, Scott Andrews stopped me as I made my way to the on-deck circle. He has a big smile on his face. Last year he said Tavy would have tried to pull that pitch and hit into a double play. If he makes that hitting adjustment all year, we're going to score a whole lot of runs. You, Reggie, and John will all get better pitches to hit. It'll be our version of Murder's Row. Curtin further unravels as he walks Reggie on 4 pitches. Red calls for me to come to see him as the Pirate manager makes his way to the mound. "Listen, Bill," said Red, "we're not taking any more first pitch strikes. If you like the first pitch and you can drive it, go for it. Don't try and do too much, as another hit is a run. Let's keep the rally alive. Make him work." I move into the batter's box as Curtin stays in the game. I wasn't as strong hitting from the left side of the plate, so it would be no problem for me taking Red's advice. I tried to block out the crowd noise as they started chanting, "Billy, Billy, Billy." For some reason I couldn't and stepped out of the box. I took a deep breath and pulled the bat over my shoulder and tried to loosen them up. I took another deep breath and stepped back in. I leveled the bat over the plate a few times and fixed my eyes on the ball in Curtin's hand as he held it behind his back but in view. He got a sign and moved upright into his set position. He checked Bond at first and Tavy at third. He broke his set and brought the ball over his head. I picked it up instantly and saw 2 fingers close together on top of the ball as he winged it toward the plate. My brain instantly registered fastball. The first 15 feet told me belt high. For the first time in my life, it looked like a softball. I coiled my shoulder, gripped the bat tighter, and unloaded a smooth, level swing as I looked straight down my arms through my wrists and hands. The ball collided with the closely spaced grain of my Louisville Slugger, but I could hardly feel the contact. The ball jumped off my bat, sending a screamer 5 feet off the ground, straight to the pitcher's mound, as Curtin finished his follow-through. He tried to put as much on that pitch as he could, but he wound up off balance and unable to put his glove up for protection. He tried to put his hand up to his face, but the ball was traveling too fast for him to react and struck him directly on the lower forehead and bounded into the Pirate dugout as Curtin fell in a pile at the bottom of the mound on the first base side. As my second step hit the ground, I knew what had happened, but instinct had me digging for first. A tremendous gasp left the crowd as the ballpark went dead silent as Tavy crossed the plate and Jones walked into second base. The Pirate dugout emptied toward the mound, as did the umpires. The medical staff from both teams ran to assist. Curtin never moved. I stood on first base and began to feel sick. As time was called, I slowly walked to the mound. The trainer and the manager were slowly rolling Curtin onto his back. He was out cold. Blood was streaming from a gash across his forehead. Curtin was still not moving. The trainer checked his pulse. "He's got a pulse," he said, "but it's very faint. We've got to get him to the hospital fast." The ambulance pulled in from the right field corner bullpen and drove all the way to in front of the Pirate dugout. Red ran up to the front railing and called up to the press box, "We need a doctor down here if there's one in the house." Red needed no microphone as the ballpark was dead silent. Doc Martin came down from the stands and helped get Curtin on the stretcher and into the ambulance. Doc was on his cell phone to the hospital as the paramedics began to take Curtin's vital signs and start an IV. As Curtin lay motionless on his back, there was blood all over his face and jersey. The right side of his forehead seemed to be slightly sunken in, almost a half an inch, in the shape of the ball. I turned around and ran behind first base and tossed up my last meal. Shortly, even though there was nothing left inside, I could not stop the dry heaves. I felt someone grab me from behind, underneath my arms, and pull me effortlessly to my feet. It was Reggie Bond. "Come on," said Reggie. "Let's get into the dugout for a bit. They're going to be a while anyway. Can you walk okay?" "Yeah, I think so," I said half-heartedly. I wiped my mouth on my shirt sleeve. Oh man, why did this have to happen? "Hey, forget about it now," scolded Reggie. "You have to try and forget about it. Nothing more, nothing less. You understand? It wasn't your fault." Somehow I knew Reggie was right, but it seemed of little consolation right now. Curtin was hurt bad. What if he could never pitch again? What if he could never see again? Gosh, what if he died? No, that would never happen, would it? Before I got to the dugout, my stomach was churning again. The back boy quickly brought me a towel and placed it up to my mouth. "Forget the dugout," Reggie instructed. "Let's get into the locker room." And we did. Reggie sat me down on an old sofa in the corner of the room. "I'm going to get a wet towel. You'll be all right." "Yeah, I'll think I'll be all right," I replied. "Just relax and lay here for a while. I'll be right back," said Reggie. I hear the cycle of the swinging doors as Reggie exits. Sounds of footsteps sneak through the opening of the swinging doors as they rock back and forth. It's Gus. "Hey, Bill," asked Gus, "are you all right? You're white as a ghost." "I feel better than I did out there on the field," I replied. How long before you think we'll hear something?" "Doc Martin?" I'm glad Doc Martin was in the stands. Curtin was still out cold as they put him in the ambulance. "Stop worrying about him. Doc will take good care of him." "It seems like a little color is coming back in your face. Let's turn this towel over into a cooler spot." "It's going to take their relief pitcher a whole while to warm up. Okay?" "Yes, Gus, I'll be fine," I reply. I attempt to sit up. "Lie back down and relax," said Gus. "This game is not going to start without you." With that, he heads back out the doors of the field. I was feeling a little bit better, but I decided to stay down and rest a while. I closed my eyes and fell fast asleep. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Bolton and Reggie. "The game is starting back up in about 10 minutes now, Dave. Do you feel good enough to get back out there?" I took the damp cold towel from my forehead and rubbed my eyes with it as I began to wake up. I take a deep breath. "How long was I out for?" I asked. "We've been gone about 20 minutes. You look a lot better than when I brought you in here." "I think I'll go brush my teeth," I announced. The taste in my mouth was awful. As I ran my tongue across my teeth, I quickly made my way to the shower room, taking my toothbrush and toothpaste with me from my locker. I brushed them twice. As I came out, Bolton was standing there with the cup. Hey, drink some of this Sprite, Bolton directed. It'll take some of the rumble out of your stomach. We need to get back onto the field and loosen up a bit. Do you feel good enough to do that? Let's go, I reply, making my way to the door. I throw the empty cup into the trash can on the way out. I do need to get back out there. As we got to the top step of the dugout, I couldn't help but see the pitcher's mound. Curtin was gone. The new Pirate pitcher was finishing his warm-up throws. Red and the Pirate manager were behind the mound talking. I moved toward the left field foul line and started jogging, hoping to remove the tension that started to creep back up into my body. I ran to the left field wall and back, just short of the third base bag. A hand ran halfway out and halfway back again. I bent over and rested my hands on my knees. The two managers made their way over to me. Bill, Skip McCormick, Pirate manager, informed Gus. Skip offered to shake my hand and I accepted. Bill, I'm not sure of all the things that are going through your mind right now, began Skip. What happened out on the mound was an accident. It was nothing more than a freak accident. Starting with the next pitch in the ball game, you just have to put it behind you. Curtin will be all right. Don't let this affect your career. You want to help Kurt? Tear this league apart with your bat and your arm. Let him know he was up against the best there was. He moved and put his hands on my shoulders and looked me dead in the eye. I know it's tough, but I hope you've heard what I said, he concluded. Thanks, Skip, I appreciate it. I responded, not really knowing what else to say. Talk to you later, Red, said Skip, as he turns and heads to his dugout. I'll meet you outside the ballpark after the game, Skip, shouts Red, through the cupped hands around his mouth, simulating a megaphone. Where are you going to go after the game, I asked Red. To the hospital. Yes, I told Skip I'd take him, replied Red. I suppose you'd like to come along. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it, I respond. What happened to Curtin seemed to greatly affect both teams. We failed to score any runs in the inning and maintained our 3-0 lead into the 8th. Como walked the first Pirate batter in the top of the 8th, which immediately brought Red out of the dugout to the mound for a little chat. Red motioned to the bullpen, where Jay Morse had been warming up since the 6th. Morse spent last year in the Rookie League in Midland, Texas. He was known not to be shy, even hot-tempered at times. And he let the batters know which side of the plate belonged to him. Super fast, with pitches clocked in the upper 90s. He could only pitch a little more than an inning or two before his speed tapered off. He could rebound and pitch every day, but seemed to only have about 30 pitches in his arm. That was something Red didn't have all last year, a real closer. Como got a standing ovation from the fans as he made his way to the dugout. He lifted his cap to the crowd in appreciation. He was warmly greeted by his teammates as he stepped down in the dugout. As I watched Mike from my spot at third, I could not help but think about this team and how well we were playing. Our pitching had been sensational. First Myers on Friday, then Como today. My turn was going to be coming up on Tuesday. The next 3 Pirate batters never had a chance. They were all looking for fastballs, and Morse broke off the best curveball of the day. If they looked curveball, the fastball